Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of TJ is Probably Wrong. I am one of your co-hosts for the evening. My name's Marty. We've got Kellen for company. How's it going, sir?
Doing just fine. Happy to be here.
Excellent. Jim and TJ's Phlegm Wads. Jim, how you doing?
Just enjoy it.
Very excited to be here in Traverse City, right next to my cohort in person. Very sweet times, indeed.
Yes, sir. And TJ, how you doing?
Well, obviously you can hear I'm suffocating over here, and I got to get mocked by you for it. Listen, I don't have a cough button. I don't have a fancy console and all that crap you YouTube dorks have. I'm sitting over here trying to breathe, But as I was saying earlier, though, I think I beat the raccoons, so I'm on the upswing around here.
All right.
So it's all right.
No more scrumping in your attic for the trash bandits.
Yeah, other than that, I'm sure there's about 25 pounds of coon scat up there, which I know I'm pretty excited about. So There's that too. So
well, we're here. Another episode of Heavy Metallurgy's Album Club. Welcome everyone in the chat. It's good to see everybody. Oh, Mr. Boris is there. Hello from the toilet. Bass player from The Glorious Dead. Speaking of The Glorious Dead, let's new albums up. Everybody that watches the show knows that it's probably up, but I'm just going to keep tooting the horn about it. Come get one, either from the band or from the label. Knows that it's probably up. Yeah. And t-shirts. We got Heavy Metallurgy shirts, links in the description. But we're here to talk about a cool album. But before we do that, why don't we talk about some shit we've been listening to? Oops, I just demonetized us. Cool. Kellen.
8 minutes.
8 minutes.
We're going strong. So this will continue. I think I mentioned last week, I've been going through a whole bit of black metal phase right now, getting ready for a stream this weekend. This is Orlok. And I'm not going to try and pronounce the French title. Sorry. But Spirit of Winds is the translation.
Cool cover.
Kind of a French band doing some melodic sort of medieval black metal. But this did not make my list, sadly. But so this stream has been dedicated to the honorable mentions. Still an awesome black metal record.
Sweet. Never even heard of them. Jim, what have you been spinning?
In honor of Nuclear War Now impending reissue, Order from Chaos, Steel Burst Machine. I think I'm going to pick up that reissue when it drops. But yeah, I've been jamming on this. It's been a while, and cool, brutal stuff. And also, well, I don't want to give the rest of it away. But yes. Listen to this if you haven't already. Good stuff.
All right, TJ.
So I've been listening to a couple things. I'll see if I can. I don't know if this is going to show up. This never works because I have no technology here, as I previously said. This is. I'm listening to the new. Let's see if this works. Does that help at all? No. How does Alan do this? Is it the backlight you guys, that stupid toilet ring thing you guys use to shine light in your face? Is that what does it? I don't know. But Marty, you're muted.
The problem is you bought the wrong phone.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. It's my Android. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm listening to the new Mutoid Man, their new release Mutants, and then this other band called Chainsword. Where did it go? Blight March. They're like the most kind of to the T bolt thrower worship I've ever heard. It's pretty good. They meander off the path in a lot of spots, but they borrow a lot of stuff from in a good way. It's pretty cool. If you're hankering for a different version of bolt thrower, but it's something I stumbled on. But it's pretty good. Chainsword. But yeah, so there's that.
Cool. All right. Me, I've been doing a lot of stuff for this channel and other things I've done listening wise, but I have worked in Tankard's Thirst, I got this in Two-Faced in a local record shop here in town a month or so ago. And this came out in 2008. And the fact that they still sound like Tankard and they're still writing really good thrash. I mean, is it essential? No. I don't know why. I just had to retail therapy, I guess, however you want to call it. But good record. It's a good record. And the other one I bought is good too. And just makes me kind of interested in checking out more of their stuff. Because I always liked Tankard. I thought of the German bands, they kind of had their own kind of sound. And they've stuck to it, which is cool. But yep. Tankard Thirst, they've got a crap ton of records, so I don't foresee myself getting them all, but who knows? You know how the collector thing goes. But yes, that leads us into tonight's topic. We will be talking about 1993's North From Here, the second album, full-length album by Finland's Sentenced. A little bit of history of the band, the early years. Sentence started in 1988 as Deformity and changed their name to Sentenced in 1989 after a few lineup changes. The original lineup consisted of Mika Tenkula on guitar and vocals, Sami Lapaka on guitar, Vesa Renta on drums, and Lari Kilmanen on bass. They recorded 2 demos. And the band actually got their first record deal with the French label Thrash Records. We'll jump to 93. The second album, North From Here, was released in the spring of 93. And later that year, the Trooper EP, which has a cover of Iron Maiden's The Trooper on it, which is interesting. Jarva had assumed lead vocal. Tonelli Jarva had assumed lead vocal duties using a different style than Tenkula. It was North From Here that earned the band the attention of the German record label Century Media Records, and in 94, Sentence left Spine Farm in order to head towards a wider market with a new multi-album contract under Century Media, which they remained with Century Media the duration of the rest of their career. So yeah, North From Here. First impressions, Kellen.
I'm a failure. How do I not own this record?
Yeah,
that is my first impression.
There's still time.
I don't belong to be a part of the stream. I'm turning in my card for all things metal. This is I've let you down.
I wouldn't go that far.
Okay. This how do I not own this record? So, okay, we'll get into that later on, but this, not since we listened to the Out of Your Picks, Marty, not since Hades Again Shall Be did I like such immediately have a connection with a record. Like there's so many things about this that are so cool, but I don't. And I'm trying to be concise here before I gush about the release, but yeah, I was all about this record, and like tonight I was sitting down listening to it, and I've listened to it like 6 times today, and I forgot that I had something on the stove. I was just in the middle of like listening to the record, and sure enough, like the alarm is going off, and I run to turn the stove off and everything. Anyway, yeah, I like it.
Sweet. Jim.
This is another band that Marty turned me on to. And he brought over a mug to my house, and we sat in what used to be my Traverse City house, what I call the metal room. It was just for listening to metal, and I hated it. I was like, dude, I don't get this band. I don't get this. This sucks. And I remember, he let me hear this. I think I like copied a bunch of MP3s from you or something, dude, or whatever it was. But I was like, hey, this is great. North From Here, this was great. But it just kind of like it fell off my radar, and I never picked it up. And honestly, haven't listened to it in years. And so I was really glad to see it come back up because I didn't even remember what it sounded like. Getting back into it, it was pretty much the first song. I'm like, oh man, yes. And it reminds me like why I don't like Amok at all, because it's such a completely different band and sound and tone to me. But what this album delivers, hits the sweet spot for me right away in many ways. even though some of the sonic choices aren't what you would find me typically hear me say on this show that I like. So we can get into that later. But no, I was pleasantly reminded of how great this album is. And P.S. I did listen to some more Muck with Marty earlier, and I still hate it. So
Can't win them all. TJ.
Well, first, I'd like to preface anything I'm about to say that to offset my general disregard for this record, I don't hate it, but I'm going to point out some fun facts about Finland to kind of set the balance between what I have to say, and because I don't want to come across as too harsh, or whatever. I mean, obviously, I'm going to be the fifth wheel. Yeah, see, I'm coming in at the bottom on this. And
That's why we're changing this to TJ's Probably Wrong. That's why the new name of the show.
No, well, everybody has opinions. Everybody has elbows. Something about assholes. I don't know. But, that being said, yeah, so, my first impression of it, first time I ever heard this band was Amok. And I probably heard that pretty close to when it came out. And it sucked. I hate it. I think it sucks. Yeah, it wasn't an accident. Marty turned me onto it, and then again, it sucked. I didn't like it. I don't care. But I tried listening to it again after this, and it's like it's just a mess. I don't care for his vocals. I just don't care about it at all. This record here, Marty's like, oh, because I never after that one, it's like, screw this band. I don't give a shit about this band. And then Marty's like, oh, we're going to listen to this one. It's a great one. Like, well, fine. I haven't. And my first thought was like, oh, crap. And then, he's like, oh, no, I'm like, okay. So I'm listening to it. And I'm like, well, this is not, I wouldn't call this a death metal record, really. I mean, kind of, sort of. It sounds more like, blackened death metal to me. But, I don't know. It's so all over the place, kind of. So, but, yeah, my first impression is I don't hate this, but I'm not, definitely not the fan that everybody else seems to be. So whatever, kiss my ass. But not really. I'm just kidding. But also, did you know that October 13th in Finland is National Failure Day? Look it up.
Wow. National Failure Day.
National Failure Day in Finland, October. Look it up. You don't believe it?
That sounds about right. That sounds like on par. Yeah. Is that the only travel guide tips we have?
Oh no, I'm going to spread it out, kind of pepper it in that way, so that way people are paying more attention to that than anything I might say. Because again, opinions, elbows, whatever.
All right. So expect an A- from TJ, but he doesn't like this record. So A-, B+ all day long. That's the gauge I'm feeling here. Well, for me, I got this record when it came out. I bought it blind. This is the first sentence I ever heard. It was on Century Media during a time where everything that Century Media put out was awesome death metal, Unleashed, Morgoth, Grave. I mean, all the classics. So, and at the time when I bought this, it wasn't exactly what I wanted to hear. It wasn't, it's got a definite thrashy vibe to it. I liked it, and I listened to it, I got to know it, but it never really clicked until years later. And when it finally did click, it was like I was listening to the album all over again, hearing it totally differently. And it's a grower. I think it's a grower type of record. The more you listen to it, the more it makes sense. There's a lot of innovative, excellent songwriting on here and riff work. It's just it blows me away. And just reconnecting with it this week, I haven't spun it in a while. And when I picked it, I was excited to check it out. And I've listened to it a lot. I mean, hell, we listened to it, 4 times tonight, getting ready for this. I don't know. But this is a classic, an overlooked classic, I would say. And I do love Amok, but it would have been nice to get another one of these. They could have milked this. So, I mean, they put out that Trooper EP. They also put out that Love and Death EP was in the vein of Amok. So I liked it. No one else here does. So whatever. But yeah, I think this is an overlooked classic, and I'm interested to hear everybody their thoughts on this. Speaking
Except
of
mine.
well, no, actually, I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on this. Can't wait. I have a very meandering question here. Let's talk about identity. Northrum here strikes me as a massive leap away from the murky waters of their gloomy death metal debut. It's such a massive evolution. There are very few remnants of what they once were. From the sharper, blacker, more coherent vocals of Tonelli Jarva to the exact, almost thrashy riff ideas, such a drastic evolution is typically suicide in the eyes of the fans. How do you view or process a band that exhibits such a flagrant identity crisis? Do such changes typically work? Did it work for in Sentence case, keeping in mind they changed another 2 times before setting on a dreary goth metal style? What do you guys think? We'll start with you, Kellen, if that made any sense.
Yeah, so I don't, to answer your question, I guess directly, I don't think it worked for them. This was kind of like this release was sort of this middle child that I never listened to. I think initially when I heard of Sentence and I thought of, Finnish death metal primarily, Shadows of the Past, I thought was kind of like a bit more in line with what I would traditionally assume you get with Finnish death metal.
Yep.
And then Amok, I would get, recommendations, or that one had, I guess, greater visibility. And this was just one that kind of was like, okay, it's sort of not the major names from the country, the time period. And I was like, I'll get to it. And man, what a mistake. I don't think this kind of stylistic change, though. I guess I want to go back a quick second. You mentioned, I think, in the Master's Hammer stream we did, like how much of experimentation is a bad thing. I think was something in the question. And I think in the context of when you phrased it, it was like over the years progressing continually, at what point does it fall off? I don't think that's, a different kind of question when we talk about progression or band identity or complexity with this particular act or this band, because they never, until they get to their goth phase, they never stay and return to a certain style. Like, I'm getting ready for this is on my head because I'm getting ready for the black metal stream. A band like Bluthaus Nord has, a couple different identities, and they will sort of reappear with one of them later on in the lifespan of the band. So if, 5 years from now, we had, an album that returned to this style after being in the goth phase or something like that, it would be one thing. But it's like they give you a taste of an identity and they just completely abandon it until we arrive at the goth sort of rock stuff. And I think as a consequence, they were never really able to build a fan base or a sense of expectation. That's kind of like my short, immediate response to it is, out of the sort of formative years that make up more death metal or extreme metal within their catalog, I don't think they ever sort of fully explore any one of those individual identities in a way that would be pleasing or fulfilling, at least to the fan base that potentially latched on to them at any point in that early phase. So I think in terms of building a metal fan base and potentially why their name isn't brought up with the upper echelon within the country within death metal, like I guess it's probably to, they're at their shortcoming, for them not to explore an identity fully.
Awesome. And Mike, thank you for the Euros. Greatly appreciate it. You're too kind. I agree with you on that, man. That's a good point. Jim.
Like I mentioned earlier, I don't have a whole hell of a ton of familiarity with Sentence above beyond discussions I've had and sit downs with Marty in the past to listen to him. So, but we did like a medley of their later stuff today at the house together, and wow, man, it seems to me like they traded one audience for another and didn't look back at all. I'm sure that the gothic fans of Sentence, the true like that are really into those later albums, don't listen to this North From Here or the debut call. And as a fan of this and the first one, I have no interest in listening to those goth albums on the inverse side of it. And so yeah, I don't think it worked for them. It in terms of, you know, like a dedicated like fan base that's going to make it all the way through, except for someone like Marty, I think, who really, really embraces all of it. I think for the most part, you know, from that perspective, you know, from our perspective as listeners, it doesn't work. But I think from theirs, it did work, because from what Marty tells me, this new-ish, I guess, whatever, they're split up now. The gothic elements that they just continue to embrace harsher and harsher on the way through Amok and Beyond brought them a lot of success, brought them a lot of attention, brought them a lot of face value. I think even like the singer's side project was even on Warner Music or something, which is crazy to me. Yeah, I think from their perspective it worked fine. You know, they're more successful, and you know, maybe they don't have to work day jobs when they're not on tour. I don't know. But so I guess it just depends on, you know, what angle, what lens are you looking at it through. For me, I don't think it was successful at all. It's such a complete about face. I don't, when I listen to Amok and I listen to this back to back as we did today, I don't hear anything, you know, that connects the two bands, you know. And I think if you're going to go that far, usually my view is you should just change the name of the band, you know. But in terms of like maybe album sales or notoriety, I guess it worked for them from that perspective. But for me as a fan, it didn't work at all. I can't see myself ever crossing that line beyond, you know, the debut in this one, you know. But I don't think they care. So there's that.
Good points. TJ.
Well, I think identity that's consistent is crucial for any band, you know, especially when you're, you know, sonically speaking, you know. I mean, you look at any bands that are general, you know, generalizing, that have been successful for as long as they've been around, they tend to stick to what's tried and true for them. But then, you know, that's not always hard and fast. You know, you can take, but there's still, I mean, well, I have to back it up a little bit. So you take, like, you say like Ozzy era Black Sabbath, and you go from the first record to Never Say Die. You know, though there is this kind of sonic shift in the band from the beginning to the end of that era, where, you know, the producers are obviously getting involved and they're changing and they're doing different things, but there's still the sonic identity that just doesn't change with the, you know, at all with the way the records move from one to the next. You know, I mean, I guess you could pin a lot of that on Ozzy's voice and whatever, but, you know, the songwriting and so much of it shifts, you know, but it's still very much, to me, you know, as a fan, it's still, to me, it always, you know, still sounded like them. But then there's also the aspect of that to where the fan is willing to be, you know, giving or forgiving of these things. And obviously for Sentenced, that seems to be the case. You know, you look at their Spotify listens, they're at 144,000 or something. You know, they obviously have a huge fan base, a lot of respect. But, and I noticed, I think it might have been Jack said in the comments maybe about, you know, they were kids when they wrote this record. And I think it shows. I think it's, you know, there was kids searching for an identity. Their peers were doing this. They were into it. They wanted to experiment. They wanted to be, you know, stand out, do something that was to the nth degree different. And, you know, and still trying to figure out who they were. And they, rather than, you know, they just worked it out sonically from release to release until you get to where they are now, and they are what they are. And, you know, there's other, I mean, you look at, like, say, early Anathema, you know, what a great dark death metal band, you know, doom band they were, and then now they're kind of like this quasi Pink Floyd thing.
They're the Beatles and Pink Floyd. Yeah,
you know, and it's, you know, so it's like as a listener, you know, we're the ones that ultimately have to kind of make that, you know, are we going to make that leap with the band? Some of us do. Some of us are like, oh, you know, I really liked what they did. And you know, it's like why Metallica still has fans, you know? So, people just are like, oh, it's so good, and you just don't understand, and that's kind of the thing. But I guess even for them, you can still, it's still them, for all intents and purposes. Where, with this band, I mean, they really did become something else. And to Jim's point, and I've kind of felt like this too, it's like, if you're going to become something so utterly beyond what you were and what everybody knew you for and what got you where you were, why not just become something different? Why not change the name? But I think that kind of, it's counterproductive in the long run, because everybody already knows who you are. If people drop off on the tail end along the way, what do you care as an artist? You're doing what you want to do. And I think there's a mark of integrity to that for these guys. They have just kind of followed their desire to sound however the hell they want to sound. And, listener be damned, you're either with us or you're not. Me personally, I don't get it. I did touch a little bit on some of the stuff after and I just, whatever. But there's other bands. I mean, you look at Tribulation, their first two records, and I like both of them. I ended up liking the gothy thing they did after the first one. I've got both of them. And the newer one I'm not digging as much. They're kind of trying to mix the two a little bit, and it's kind of coming across weird. But that, I digress. I mean, I'm, the fan, I'm listening, I'm like, where their identity is for those, it's like, I don't, they kind of lost me, identity wise. But and same with these guys, it's like, you can listen to a Muck and then you listen to North from here, and there is just nothing that really pins them together in any discernible way. But again, all that aside, yeah, I think identity matters in so much as the fans are willing to, follow along. But as a creator, it's really, somebody's making music. It's, what do I want to do? Do I really care, what the fans want or not? Some people that matter. Some musicians and stuff, they're trying to make a living, and so they pay a lot of attention to that stuff. Other guys, they do what they want. So.
Well, the whole change the name thing, I guess it's easier to say than actual. I mean, you sign a contract with the label, probably Century Media. They probably signed a huge contract for many albums because they stayed with them the rest of the time. And their final evolution ended up being very popular. But if you're going between the first album and North from Here, it's a huge jump. But I think that type of a jump, you can tell they're trying to find their identity. They're growing as musicians. It's very evident between the first album and the second album. They got way better at playing. And I think that evolutionary leap is acceptable for people that were fans of the debut because it's still within the realm. It sounds, me and Jim were talking, I'm like, it sounds like they're tuned to A standard. I mean, the riffs are really sharp, and it doesn't sound like down-tuned death metal to me. So, I mean, right there is going to be a sonic shift, and then you've got a brand new vocalist singing, who Jarva, which we can also, the debut Impaled Nazarene came out in 93. He was also the bass player with them for quite a while. So he was in that band as well. But he obviously isn't doing in Impaled Nazarene what he's doing here. But after this, the evolution into Amok, I would have liked more of North from Here, but I did like Amok due to the riffs. I think the riffs are good. The songwriting's good. It's endless earworms. Jarva has shifted his vocals to sound a little bit more like Carl McCoy from Fields of the Nephilim. It worked for me, but I can see the drop off, that identity crisis. We're like, okay, we did this. Now we're doing this. And I think that is a jump. I mean, just divided in the chat, divided in this room. I think that's where you start to really lose the fans. And thankfully for them, it took off, because after that, they did that Down album, which is a new singer. Jarva's out of the band. And they went way more commercial. They polished up their aesthetic. They're writing stuff for goth chicks. it's fine. But I'm always baffled by bands that are evolving so rapidly. Each album sounds like a different band, and this is one of them. And this is a snapshot in time type of album, and it's pretty special. And like I said, it takes a lot of listening to get, I think, for it to really set in. But yeah, Identity, and the Metallica thing. I think the thing going in Metallica's favor is the fact that they had such a big impact at the right time that they are appealing to people's nostalgia, and their fan base aged. Their fan base got old and took them with them. They never stayed out of the public eye. But anyway, that's another discussion. We've already probably had that discussion, but let's talk about anybody have anything else to add on that before we move on? Nope. All right. Discuss the musicality and composition of North From Here. Kellen.
So we've kind of, I mean, I totally agree that this is a kind of a thrashy, we were just kind of mentioning in the comments here, like a thrashy death metal. But it's only just because of like the precision of the playing. Like, I don't for a second, if you want to call it death thrash, it still feels like you're shortchanging this record. And that's purely if you were to sort of strip away all these sort of like tertiary and ancillary elements that make this like Finnish, but also weird and great. They're pulling these like, to your point, I think TJ mentioned there's like a sort of a blackened element to this. You can hear, I don't know if it's just a Norwegian influence, but at times it's got this sort of like symphonic element to it. It's odd and proggy. I know we've already in the chats they've been talking about the tuning for the guitars, which the guitar tone on this is also super unique. I guess the biggest thing that I was impressed by was, and the production when we get there. I have some like very specific sort of notes, but just the energy to this record and the precision of the playing was what stood out to me. It's got this like, yes, odd, eccentric, which in a lot of ways I think exemplifies Finnish death metal, but at the same time there's this incredible musicianship operating, and they go through all these sort of time changes and cool like moments. Wings, there's this part where like there's a very sort of melodic sort of guitar, like slow melodic tuning, and then in the background you can just hear like a very slight itching, like palm muted thing happening with the second guitar, and how that sort of builds and finds a mid-paced riff before it launches into a solo. It's such a cool little way to break a song apart. But I was completely caught off guard by just how talented, coming from like this doomy death metal from their first record to something that is so incredibly executed, that it would immediately bring to mind, Atheist or Pestilence or something like that. So it's a wild change from what I would initially thought this record was going to sound like, and incredible musicianship with all sorts of interesting sort of influences pouring in.
All right, Jim.
Okay, musicianship and composition. Well, yeah, I mean, you got me on mute, so you don't do that. Okay. These guys are obviously shred-tastic, but not just shred-tastic here. They have a real good grasp of what I'll just call a atonality or disharmony or whatever. There's a lot of cool like scales throughout the record where the other guitar player is playing something that just it's like a melodic run on the scale if it was just one guitar playing it, but the other guitar plays it in a key that's just a little like still musical, but makes it like really evil and dark and twisted sounding. And I'm not technical enough to know exactly what that is, but they do that in a lot of different places on the record, and it makes it really, really sound unique. It keeps them from being like, I would say, like a dark tranquility, for instance, where it's the melody is always there, no matter what kind of runs the guitar players are doing or how they're doing it, it's harmonizing. When these guys are playing together, there's a lot of disharmony there. and I really appreciate that because it's in service of the song. It isn't, this, we're not listening to, noise. And when I say noise, I mean it's a genre. This is truly death metal, and it works, and it's always in service of the song. And that combined with the moments where they do introduce heavy doses of melody with, you know, you know, dense keyboards, or like, single note, or single string eighth notes or something like that. Um, when they combine all that together, like it gives me a very sort of like a black metal feel. Even though this is a death metal record, absolutely it is. I definitely hear, you know, the guys had to be listening to some death metal. By the time this came out, the first two, first two black metal Darkland records were out. First, version was out, Mayhem was out. And interestingly enough, one of my favorite songs in this record, actually, I made the comment to Marty. I think it sounds like a death metal emperor. But the funny thing was in the Night Side didn't come out until a year later. So make that of what you will, but just the way that the riffs are arranged, and even though the what Kellen referred to as the symphonics, and I agree, are really, for me, in the keyboards on that song, which is, might as well just go ahead and call it out now, Awaiting the Winter Frost. The keyboards on the song are lower in the mix, and the guitars are way up, so I think that's part of why it just sounds like a lot of like progressive death metal. But when you kind of really pay attention to what the keyboards are doing and how they intertwine with the riffs in that song, man, it really does sound like symphonic black metal, but just in a very death metal sort of production. So, I mean, a lot of really cool, interesting choices here. And there's something that, whether you're a drummer or a guitar player or a bass player, that you can grasp on. These guys love doing bass breaks. There's breaks for the bass guitar all over this album, and every song. And even though it's not like, the distorted bass that we all know I love, I think for this band, and the distorted bass would not have worked. How do you say that guy's name, man? Larva, Parva, Sarva, Jarva. Whatever it is, Yarva, Jarva. His really clean bass sound on this, I think it had to be because the way these guys do all these scaled runs, and he does a lot of like picked chords in his bass. It would have just sounded like mush, and if he was doing that in these songs, and the way these are constructed with a really like very clean and precise guitar sound, I don't think it would have worked. I think he made a great choice by staying clean toned on the bass, and it actually makes you appreciate what he's doing more. You can really hear it on those bass breaks, and some of the things he does, I'm just in awe of. I mean, this album's 30 years old now, and I'm still just like, wow, that was a really cool run that he did, or a really cool like key choice he made. So there is definitely something on offer here, but yet it doesn't come across to me as like shred-tastic for the sake of shred-tastic. There's my tongue twister for the day. Yeah, I pulled it off, Kellen. Thank you for the applause there. I really do think it's and even if it's maybe chalked up to them like still trying to find their voice, which for me, oddly enough, that ended up being gothic metal. Whatever took them to these like technical heights, I really, really appreciate it. Even though the first album is awesome and its darkness and dirtiness, I can still see a connection with that first album, even though it's completely different in terms of like taking that and just like really throwing some technical proficiency on it. It was successful for me.
Hey, we'll just let it be known. We'll write a message on the wall that today was the first day that the Jim chose clean bass over distorted bass.
Yeah.
It shall be noted and documented. The annals of time. And Gore Metal Hagnoroth. Thank you so much for your super chat. We appreciate it, man. Good to see you. And I hope you're doing well, and catch you in the chats hopefully Friday. Cheers. Kellen did it. TJ.
So I skipped it on the last one. So first, let me start off by saying number 2. And some of you may already know this, but per capita, Finland has more heavy metal bands than any country in the world. Look it up.
Their biggest export is also wooden matches. Just saying. I did a thing on Finland in high school. A report.
Hey, no man is a man unless he's got a box of wooden matches. I'm right here. There they are.
Well, you know where it came from.
So that's number 2, and then I'll follow up with the third one once we get through this part, because this is the part of this record where I kind of have the biggest problem, where I find the biggest issues as a listener, as a fan. The riffs, they're like all the parts are here for me, like the insane angular riffs, just the kind of off kilter going out there. And I've said it on here before, look, I brought Portal to the fold. I like Portal. I put Portal on and listen to it, why do I like that? And then I find this to be not that appealing. What's my malfunction, you might ask?
That is a wonderful. Let's just hang in this moment. Why don't we just take a minute and hang in this moment? Hold on.
Let's
let me take
join
it in
together. Let's come together as a group.
There's probably a list.
Anyway, go ahead.
You just had a breakthrough. Okay.
I wouldn't call it a breakthrough. It's just it's just kind of a it's a crystal moment. It's one of those things. It's like what is my hang up here? And to be perfectly, it's like I just don't really care for the way these guys write songs on this record. I don't. They just to me, they're trying so and. I have to butt that up with saying that they do it so effectively. The songs, they put these songs together. They stitch these riffs together. This record is so kind of tech, because there is just so much pure insanity going on. You got it, Jack. I'm one amongst many problems. I'm checking them off. I got a list. It's right here. But they just there's so much coming at you, that you just kind of get lost in kind of the just kind of overwhelming morass of some of these songs. But the thing of it is they put it all together, in front to back. It's like the songs don't feel like they didn't know what they were doing, or it's very intentional. It feels very very purposefully put together, but the shit is just kind of like, it just feels kind of forced to me at times. Like they're just pushing so hard to be so out there with this record, to be like, this record cannot sound like the first record at all for any reason whatsoever. So we're breaking out the salad tongs and the bowl, and we're just going nuts with this shit. And they did. There is absolutely, just endless amounts of creative shit on here. It's just there are moments where where I'm listening and I get drawn in. And then they shift, and then they lose me, and they go off somewhere else. But I notice on repeated listens, like, where some of these bands do that stuff, and they just, from front to back, the song just, it doesn't say anything. It's just, riff, and it's kind of a mess. They're bringing it around. They're using structure. They're doing, they're putting it together. But it's just the way they're doing it for me. It just doesn't appeal to me at all. I'm trying to go over my notes a little bit. The riffs are very intense and very creative. But I tend to get lost in it. Some of the timing shifts are a little just bizarre to me. Where they just jump ship in the middle of doing something really cool, and then just like, full stop, boom, and then they zing, they're off doing something else for a bar, 2 bars. and then back to something else, and it just, I'm kind of waiting to get, dragged into the song, and I don't. I guess, I don't know how else to put it. I think it's endlessly creative, and I've, again, I'll qualify with saying, I've said it on here before. Like with the Beherit and shit, it's like, I hate that record, but I give them credit for what they're trying to do. And they're trying to be so creative and stuff. It just doesn't appeal to me as a fan or as a songwriter, whatever. But, and so, it's just my opinion on it. I get why this record is important. And I get why the appeal to all the heads in the audience and everywhere. But just for me personally, I just, the way they're putting it together, it just, I don't know. I don't care for it all that much. So there, and then the number 3, the Finnish invented the Molotov cocktail. So look it up.
Right on. We don't have to. You're telling us. It's like, yeah. Google.
Who's wrong? Who's wrong? Not me. Look it up.
Do your own research.
I did. They invented it.
All right. Here we go. Is this sentence album a better listen than Plague Fever Crude Implements?
I don't know. I like that.
Everybody, I'm just going to put it out there a little behind the scenes. Plague Fever wanted to send TJ a t-shirt after our stream last week. Just saying.
But they couldn't do it though. You want to know why?
Because they didn't have sexy size. Yeah, they didn't have it in sexy. Yep.
Yeah. And I would like to point out too, I know their engineer, because we had talked about maybe them using, plugins or something in the studio. According to their engineer and stuff, they actually used a Marshall and a Mesa in the studio. Cool. So I want to stand corrected for that. So anyway.
Right on. Well, for me, what TJ is saying, I get. And I've been there with this record. It's been just a lot of really spinning the crap out of it and listening it and becoming accustomed to the songs. And I think the disorientation of some of the transitions and feeling like things are kind of sandwiched together, that's where the thrash vibe comes in for me. I mean, you look at some of the 80s thrash. I mean, there's some bands, some popular bands that basically the songs they wrote were riff salad. Riff, 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 riff. Thankfully, Sentence doesn't, for me, go that far because there are some recalling of some awesome harmonies and melodies on this thing. And I like the fact that they walk the line where they keep some structure, but the way the songs break off at times, I don't know where I'm going on the journey. And I like that. I really like that. It makes it kind of exciting for me. But for North from Here, atypical and endlessly interesting melodies on this album. It's true. The melodies on here, they sound like it's definitely dipping its toes in what's going on. I would say melody wise, kind of the sweet, melodic, Swedish death metal era. That's kind of the vibe I think they're shooting for here a little bit. It doesn't really strike me as death or black metal, but it's just kind of a mix of everything, especially since they tuned up. They're tuned. I don't know if this is standard tuning, I would think that's right. It might be E flat. I don't know, but it's not down tuned at all. And the twin harmonized guitar work on this is great. It's really unique. It really brings out something special in these songs. And the songs there's a lot going on. And like Jim mentioned earlier, the bass is used as a transitional tool quite often. I mean, the music will stop. There'll be like this, affected bass line comes in a little bit, and then they shoot into something else. I mean, that's just kind of an element that's a thrash element. I mean, it's like a transitional thrash element. You got two riffs that might be a little janky together, throw a little bass thing in there, and then jump into the next riff. And by that point, if the riff is good enough that you're jumping into, you're going to forget about that transition. There's a lot of that going on here, but the more I've spun this record and become familiar with this record, it all gels. And the songs, they start in an interesting place with some great guitar work, and they go into a place that I never thought they would have at the beginning of the song, which again, I find it exciting. I find it, it's a challenging record. You got to spin this thing a bunch. And like I said, it took me years to finally the light switch. I liked it when I bought it, but it wasn't Grave. It wasn't Entombed. It wasn't in that vein. It was just different. So I felt it was kind of clinging to the past with the thrash stuff going on. But man, when I returned to it and actually really sat and listened to it, it clicked. The light switch was on. I'm like, oh, I get it. It's so good. But yeah. Let's talk about production. Kellen.
So yeah, I dig the production, but I guess the point that I really wanted to make here was this record sounds to me like, I don't know if it was how much of it was recorded live in the studio, but it comes off like not only are they playing all together, but like if you had practiced an entire record and put it, whatever, it came out, you released it as a band, you practiced all the songs, and then you went to go perform live, and like the adrenaline and the excitement for the show, whatever tempo you were supposed to be performing your song at, you start to play just a little bit faster because of the excitement in the moment. The entire record to me sounds like that. Like there's a certain kind of like live performance aspect to this, and there's like a pacing rhythm that feels like they're playing off of each other. Like the guitars want to play a little bit faster, and the drummer's trying to catch up to make sure he gets the right spot in place, and everything lands in the correct spot. But there's a certain kind of live energy to this production. So I don't know how it was recorded, but that was the one thing I couldn't put my finger on. It wasn't just in the sense of like how well the instruments were recorded, but the entire kind of personality of the record and the musicianship on display feels like it's happening in real time. And I think that's a special thing to have on a record. I think I mentioned early when we've had a few different comments in the chat about the guitar tone on this. It's a really interesting sort of place. I feel it is more pronounced in the lead play. It stands out a little bit more to me. But I really have no complaints here on the production. All the instruments are captured, for some reason, because it's a Finnish band, I'm probably a little bit more forgiven. It's a little bit weird. It's supposed to be. It's Finnish. But I do want to say, like Jim made the point earlier about how all the sort of like secondary, whether it's the symphonic moments or any sort of eccentricities, always feel like they're properly staged towards the back of the production. They never sort of overtake the performance of the musicians on this record. I really have no complaints here, but I did think it was really interesting. I didn't know if any of you had notes about the actual recording process. We'll get into favorite songs, but at the beginning of Awaiting the Winter Frost, you can hear him count off. You can hear him like 1, 2, 3. Like it feels like he's right there performing live with the band. So I was curious just if anyone had follow-up notes on that.
The only notes I have is recorded and mixed December 92 through February 93 at Tico Tico Studio, which is kind of a world-renowned studio for Finnish renowned anyway. Studio in Kemi, Finland by Atti Kortelanian, and sent the band themselves. So that's all I know. Tico Tico, very familiar with a lot of Finnish bands for sure. All right. You good, Kellen?
I'm good here.
All right, Jim.
Yeah, wise, pleasant surprise. Death metal was a little uneven sometimes from production wise in '93. Some things I think I listened to and I'm like, I really love that, and some things I listen to and I'm like, it sounds thin, or whatever. For death metal, but on this album, even though I can say what the thin comment kind of holds true a little bit for the guitars and even the bass, some. With the kind of like staccato attack of the playing, the performances here, and even with the songwriting, it's a very scale driven outside of the tremolo picking, that's sort of like, maybe a little less gain, a little more thinness it serves the song. I mean, you want to, when you're playing music that's kind of, technical and progressive. I mean, if you're taking the time to develop that, whether you're at home or in the jam room with your friends, if you're taking the time to develop that, you want people to hear it, you want them to understand it. So I think that it was the right way to go, not only for maybe what's coming directly out of their speakers, but for what was like, twisted on the mixing board. It all kind of, fits with, the overall attack of this album for me. That it's, these are really good songs, but constructed in such a way where, simplicity takes a back seat to, you know, a little bit more, or a few more hours behind the metronome, or something. So I actually really appreciate, the choices here from the guitar aspect. And the drums are really, really well recorded here too. I can hear the toms really well. I like the kick sound. It has a good presence there. It's not like, it doesn't sound too triggered, but yet it doesn't sound so, rounded off where it's in, the guy's closet next door, which I'm okay with that in some instances, but in this case, I wouldn't be so much if that had been the option for them. But even the vocals here, and I agree with Marty, so he's right on. Like the vocals here, like are complete antithesis of the first album. I mean, to me, these are just black metal vocals, pure and simple. A lot of like the reason why I feel that there's a black metal leaning in this album is not just because of the keyboard accompaniments and some of the structures, especially in the Death Metal Emperor song "Awaiting the Winter Frost." Is that vocal attack? Is that shriek in vocals? Parva was playing bass and an Impaled Nazarene at the same time, and so their first couple albums, and we kind of spun through those as well today, Marty and I together. That's just pure black metal. I mean, a very punkish black metal, a very kind of hardcore infused black metal. I like when I say that, I mean like true hardcore, just fast and simple, but mean. And kind of like the antithesis in style, but you could see that shows his very playing. But that he was listening to that stuff. They were actually a part of that scene in his other band. So I don't know if it was just him alone or the other guys as well, but there was definitely from him vocally and and probably carried over from Impaled and some of the bands that he was listening to and or playing with at the same time. That influence coming to the forefront. And so I think whether consciously or subconsciously, they made the choices to in the studio mix things in such a way where atmosphere and would be present there, even in the midst of the technicality. Like there is some real atmosphere on this. There is some darkness in here, and we can go into that in more detail. We start talking about favorite songs, but I think that it's the right balance between overall sound to create a mood, but yet absolute clarity to ensure that you hear the time spent in developing the arrangements.
All right, TJ.
I like the production on this. It's kind of stood out to me right from the get-go. And I was curious whether or not, because that one, he does the count off in the one song, and I'm like, why in the hell would you leave that in there? It's so kind of corny, but then it kind of makes sense. That was they probably got the take so good, they're just like, oh, just go ahead and leave it in there, and it is a little weird, but and it makes more sense now that I see was it Jack Haffer, he put that stuff in there, and now that I listen, I think I like the production. I like everything. And being that they were doing this all live, it's like, everything is in its place, and the riffs, you can pull them all apart and listen to it. You can hear what's going on, the bass. And I think, and with Jim, I mean, I'm a huge fan of the blower bass. I love distorted bass when it's crafted the right way and thrown in the mix. But sometimes the clean bass just helps those songs get where they need to go. It just carries the bottom end, and they're doing so much stuff that's so kind of shrill and pinched that that cleaner bass, I think, helps really push a lot of this stuff out to the front. And by and large, I'm not super crazy about his vocals. They are what they are. They definitely sound more like black metal vocals to me, but overall, I think it's a really stellar production for something that came out in '93. And judging by what was in the comments, these kids were living in a camper trying to record this record live in a studio. I mean, that's brutal, middle of winter in Finland. That's double sucks. So, kudos to them. I'm working on it, what was it? What somebody said? I sound like I was from Latvia last time. I don't remember.
He's a man of many dialects.
Yeah, he's well traveled. Right. He's got the geography thing here.
But I think the production on this is really cool. I definitely dig it. I don't think there's anything about it that's really, messy or wrong. Especially for the era, like Jim said, a lot of the stuff coming out at the time could be, questionable at times. So definitely cool. And number 4, there is a Burger King in Finland that has an indoor sauna. Look it
up. So have some burgers with your meat, I guess.
Just go steam them buns, I guess. I don't know. Wah, wah.
I gotta say, I am Finnish, and I have never been in a sauna until this year. My friend Austin's house, he's got a traditional sauna, and I hate heat. I thought it was going to be terrible, but it was awesome. I get it. I've seen the light. I get it. I get why they do it. Anyway, are we talking about production? Yes. Me and Jim were talking earlier tonight about this and the fact that it's such a clean sounding record. The guitars are distorted, but somehow they don't seem distorted. There's a weight to them, but there's not like a buzzsaw tone. It's just a really clean, tight distortion. And, me and Jim were talking about the bass sound, and I can't imagine another bass sound for this record. It's perfectly crystal clear, but it's got, a little bit of a compressor or something on reverb or something on it. I mean, there's such technical stuff going on and layers happening. I think if it was any more distorted or dense, or if the tuning was lower, something simple like that would have really muddied the waters on this mix. But I really like the fact, I like how Jarva's vocals are way out front, but yet not too much. Everything can be heard. The drums, it's perfect. And Jack, thank you for sharing the chunks from that interview, because hearing the fact that they played some of these songs live in the studio, it kind of I can't imagine the practice, because it's perfect. They're perfect and they're technical. I can't imagine the thought process and the focus that have to go into playing some of these songs. Production, overall very clean production, but it's just a good sound. It doesn't have a lot of low end to it. There's not too much high end to it. It just sits right in this realm, and it's kind of a unique production, especially for the time. I mean, you're looking at, the HM2 revolution was happening full swing, and they avoided it. And, the black metal, Dark Thrones, first 3 albums were out at that point? 2. So they did Blaze in the Northern Sky was their first black metal record, where they went anti-production, but they avoided all that, and they stayed in. I mean, even if you look at the Impaled Nazarene stuff too, it's pretty simplistic, awesome black metal, but it still has a good production. It's not crap production. They actually went to a studio. So the fact that they actually really focused on a clear, clean production, I think it benefits this music perfectly. It's a perfect fit. And that leads us to least favorite songs. I should have this memorized by now, but I don't. Least favorite songs, Kellen.
So favorite songs are the 2 that I previously mentioned, Wings and Awaiting the Winter Frost. But I should mention, like, there's not a single bad song on this record. It's not, and I don't mean that like there's no real terrible song. Like, they're all enjoyable. Like, they're all. I completely was won over by this record. So I don't have too much to add here because I dug it that much. But all great songs. Those are my two favorite.
All right, Jim.
For me, man, it was Capture a Fire. Really, kind of hit really hard. I mean, there's some awesomeness in there. At the beginning, there's some dissonant style riffs that makes it sound like a death metal voivod, which to me, those words in the same sentence are amazing. But what's crazy about that is they go from that dissonance into this very triumphant marching type of riff in the verses, and it's just like kind of a classic metal march. And to go from that, like a dissonant voivod death metal hybrid thing, into this like straight up marching riff of just awesomeness, and to make that work, I mean to me that's emblematic of how awesome this record is. I really love Capture a Fire for that reason. And there's this weird kind of like the word like encircling kept going through my head. Listen, the way the riffs and the guitars and bass kind of play off of each other. Especially at the 1:30 to 2-minute mark, you'll hear like an eerie acoustic guitar over this like cool distorted guitar they're not playing the same thing, but it just works. And then, as if it couldn't get any weirder, there's the chanting outro where me and Marty kind of figured out we think they're saying kill, kill, kill. Yeah. And then the obligatory fire sound outro, so yeah, Capture a Fire. Yeah.
Yes.
Right on.
That's how you make fire in the studio, everybody. Crumple up a paper. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, but other than that, yeah, also awaiting. I keep harkening back to this one, awaiting the Winter Frost. Again, to me, it sounds like a death metal emperor. I love this. I love the chorded bass lines that they'll break, and he'll just play those like it's really, really cool. And also, for me, I like the closer. Epic. I think it closes song. It closes strong, rather. More also the black metal vibe comes through here a little. To me, it sounded like like Dissection without the reverb, in certain areas. You'll kind of hear it. It's not like that way the entire way throughout, but there's a few moments where you may kind of pick up on that. But overall, I agree with Kellen. It's a great record. Much to my chagrin, I did feel like after listening to it, I should have had this in my collection. Marty exposed me to it years ago, and I should have pulled the trigger. I will remedy that. The only song that I thought that it doesn't really grab me, I still think it's cool, but nothing kind of stood out for me very much, was Northern Lights, track 7. I got to give it another spin because someone else in this room, I think, does like it a lot. So maybe I missed something there. But even that song is awesome. It's front to back. I think this is a must-have record. So.
TJ.
Capture a Fire, Jim. I think that's a really cool song. I thought they had one of the more consistent arrangements on the record. And then, that song Awaiting Winter Frost, I'm really torn with that because, like, I thought the beginning of it was, in the 1, 2, 3, 4, I didn't know what to make of it. Now I think I have a better sense of why it happened. So I feel a little bit more forgiving about the issue personally. But I like how vicious the song kind of takes off. Beyond that, I don't really have any other real criticisms of any of the songs. It's, I just kind of try to pick the ones that I connected with the best, and the rest of them are just, they're just there for me. I don't, don't hate any of it. I don't, somebody, tried telling me, I said the record sucked. I never said that. I do not think this record sucks. I just not, it's just not hitting for me. So, but yeah, that's kind of my phase. And then finally to number 5, finish off the night. The Finns have a tradition of ant nest sitting. Apparently, it's some contest that they do.
A what?
Ant nest sitting.
Oh,
Look
they
it up.
sit on it.
They sit on it, and the last guy up is the winner, I guess. So there you go. and then you go and sit in the sauna, I guess, and cook the ants. I don't know. I don't know what happens, but that
Eat a Whopper.
Yeah, and then go sit in the sauna. If you take the Whopper in the sauna, it becomes a White Castle because it's steamy. So it'd be a great big White Castle. But so there's number 5, and there you go.
If our internet drops out, the internet over here has been stupid tonight, so it's acting weird. Just saying. I gotta say, I don't dislike any songs on this record. I put one down here for one little point, but the songwriting on here, the guitar work, the harmonies or the melodies that are written, the only thing I can say is exciting. It's been a while since I've heard a record that it does. I think the guitar work and the level of riff writing and the melodies that are written and the twin guitar lines that are going on, this is an exciting record. Again, I don't always know where the song's going to go, which is interesting. And the way they get you on that journey, it's just awesome guitar work. It's just really good. For me, Northern Lights is probably my favorite song on here. It's aggressive and powerful intro leads into complex layering with a crystal clear bass line coexisting with the mind-blowing twin guitar melodies. And those searing melodic riffs in the chorus. Holy crap. I mean, it's like this air guitar, the whole dang thing. Infinitely triumphant and epic. Total air guitar moment. Yeah, that's my notes. Structurally amazing, as I don't know where the song is going, nor do I care. I just love the journey. True. Another favorite, Capture of Fire. Amazing verse. The first riff on that is just a killer riff. It's so smooth and has a flow, and it's an interesting riff. I don't know where it's going to go, but when it gets there, it's like, wow, what a dark hook. It's great. So much movement and flow, very memorable, and among the best on the album as far as riffs. This song is packed with quality riffs. There's a lot of interesting things happening on there. Waiting the Winter Frosts, mature riff work, and advanced melodies mixed with savage verse riffs and speed makes this hard to deny. Awkward speed, thrash riffs come in to make it even more exciting. Wings. Introduced early on, their talent for complex and advanced melodies is found on the atmospheric intro. This track maintains a solid flow throughout. Fields of Blood, Harvester of Hate, aggressive thrash riffs over tribal tom work allows the track to build before exploding into fierce thrash assault. Super killer riffs. It's just, I don't know. It's just awesome. Twin tremolo guitar lines in the midsection of the song really pile on the epic vastness of the sound. This moment puts me in mind of symphonic black metal leanings. I had to pick one, and the last song on the album, Epic. There's some weird in and out of time riffs on this thing that, like, they do it repeatedly so that they intended to do it, but it's just, it kind of takes you out of the zone. It sounds odd, but it works. Towards the end of the song, there's an out of place riff that works as underneath the solo. It seems like they slapped that in for the solo only, and they don't return to it again. So it has very little to do with the rest of the song. I mean, there's moments like this where TJ's not wrong. There's some definite weird transitions that, if TJ and I were writing a song, we would be like, this is a really cool riff, but we're sandwiching it in this song. Does it really fit in the song? No, let's take it out and put it in and make a new song around it. These guys left it, and they did that a lot throughout this record, which sometimes it works for exciting results. Sometimes it's like, oh, okay, it's a killer riff, but I don't know that fits in that song. But I mean, that's my only complaint. And I don't dislike any of it here. It's so good. And that leads us to final thoughts. Kellen.
Yeah, it was an immediate buy for me. It did not take long. So if my review for the evening hasn't sold you and you're potentially unclear about what my thoughts are, please go pick this up. Full send. I'm all about this record. It was a lot of fun listening to it. Probably the more difficult part is like I can't find any other record in their catalog like it.
There's not.
Right, and
it's a standalone.
Right,
That
and
Trooper,
like,
there's a Trooper EP which has got, well, I don't remember what's on it. The Trooper has Iron Maiden cover of the Trooper, Desert by Night, In Memoriam, and Awaiting the Winter Frost. So I don't know, a couple of those songs I think are exclusive.
So
anyway,
yeah, I guess that there's one downside to this is that the band never really went back to this, and even trying to compare another band from this era to this specific record feels like a overreaching, I guess. Like it is sort of an anomaly, and good side of that about that is like I'm happy to discover it. I'm happy that I didn't just breeze past this band and this release thinking that I knew, it wasn't something special, and probably I'll cherish it that much more. But it's on its way, and looking forward. Please pick this up.
Did you buy it on vinyl?
I've got the CD coming, the original press, and then I will also have the vinyl coming as well.
If it's the reissue vinyl, it's got a weird like metallic border around it, which is so. I would have bought it on vinyl. I held it in my hands, but it's got they mess with the artwork. It's so stupid.
Okay,
I don't know if you got an original copy, you're good.
I have not picked up the vinyl record. I just have the original CD because I wanted that first, and then I'll go look at vinyl.
Right on, Jim.
Yeah. Final thoughts is, I'm working with this guy at a local record store who, has only been carrying very little metal, and he wants to dive in. And I gave him a list of what I think, not a comprehensive, but a good list to kind of establish his bona fides and get some essentials out there. And after listening to this, I immediately thought of that list, and I was like, this should be on there. I think that this is something I'm not going to get tired of. I mean, I've listened to it, I don't know, probably including all the times listening to Marty Day, maybe 15, 20 times since we got the assignment, and I'm not tired of it. I know I'm going to keep listening to it, and that's a statement when you can jam on something that much and continue to find something that's intriguing to it. And I will say one of the good things about them, doing an about face genre wise and putting out substandard albums after this is that as soon as this album would end on YouTube Premium and play one of those other records, it was great. It was a great realization that, hey, it's time to start this record back over. I knew that this was over because it completely sounds like a different band. But no, I think this is definitely an essential record. I think there's enough originality here. Guys were talking constantly. There's an atheist influence. Great. I mean, we need more atheist influence. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. And though this was definitely a band in transition to TJ's point, this is definitely a band that obviously with the 180-degree turn in their style, we're trying to figure out who they were. I think that sort of kind of like psychological disjointedness and not knowing what port they were sailing to, indirectly or inadvertently ended up in a really cool, different death metal album being created. So I'll take it.
Right on, TJ.
I give the record 3.5 packets of duck sauce.
That's it.
I told you I got no more letter grades, man. No more. I'm done. No more.
But 3.5 out of what?
Well,
5, 10, 7.
That's we'll say 3.5 out of 5. I guess. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Does anybody even care? Is anybody even listening? I don't know. whatever. You know,
We're listening, TJ. We're listening.
no, nobody cares about me and the things I say. It's fine.
Hey, it sounds like you're about ready to go listen to the later day suicide chic goth girl sentenced with that attitude,
Oh,
sir.
yeah.
No one cares
Here it
about
comes.
me. Might as well just stick
Here
my
it
head in the
comes.
noose.
Here it comes.
Here it comes.
Stare at my shoes and cry.
Listen to later day sentenced. Anyway. All right. 3.5 duck sauce packs. For me, it's an overlooked classic. No one talks about this record anymore. When was the last time you heard anybody talk about this record? It's been a long time, and it sucks that it's been kind of forgotten. So I'm glad, with this show, TJ is probably wrong is the name of the show. Now we're changing it. I'm glad we could shed a little light on this one because it's a special record. It's classic, and I'm glad we got to talk about it tonight. I'm glad, Kellen, you're righting the wrongs of the past, and you are stepping up to the plate with your hard-earned coin and buying a classic. So yeah, that's it. But before we depart, it's Jim's pick. He was on a work thing, and he forfeit his turn to pick, but he is picking now. So let's get him up here and find out what he has selected.
So on this, I have the vinyl at home, but Marty was gracious enough to let me borrow the CD version so I could show it. And just want to again give kudos to Mr. Marty because, as with many of the bands I like, this is another band he turned me on to. And we're going to be checking out Devourment, Obscene Majesty. Yes, that's right. Get ready, you guys. Get ready. That's all I'm going to say. Let's do this.
That is a face melter of a record. It was so hard to punch through because it's like a lot going on in that record. It's so brutal, but not in the traditional, circle pit or, whatever type of pit that happens at those shows or pig squeals or all that crap. But it's just a complex mess of a brutal record. But when you unlock it, it pays off. It's a really great record.
Obscene Majesty, was that the one you said?
That's
the one you were.
Yeah,
that's the one you were playing. Yeah, right on.
It's their latest.
Yeah, I remember. Cool.
And that's it. Kellen, do you have anything to promote? Anything going on?
Yes. So on the Gas Mask and Hands Grenade this weekend, on the evening of the 12th, I'll put a link here in the chat. There's a large group assembled to talk about favorite black metal records.
Right on.
So you can check out the chat. A few friends of the Heavy Metallurgy channel, Roger, who was just on with us recently, but Devin, Logan, Jimmy, myself, a few other people who haven't been on, but all the links and info is there for you to check out. So if you want something to do this weekend, talk some black metal, that stream will be there for you.
It'll be a good time. Good stuff. I'm looking forward to it. A lot of those guys in that chat are going to be pulling stuff that I might not have heard, including yourself. Also, I want to check out this past Monday on the Heavy Metallurgy album review series. Kellen just reviewed the new Thantafaxis. The new Thantafaxis.
Say it with Kellen. You can do it.
Thantafaxis.
Smack a fat ass album. He did a great job. He did a great job unpacking that complex, cool, interesting record. So check that out. Go check out his channel. We talked about Sacred Outcry a week or two ago. That was a lot of fun. Jim, do you have anything going on? Anything other than hanging out in Traverse City until Saturday?
Let's see. What do we got left to do? We might go up to Elk Rapids, which is, if you know this area, a really cool town that's got a cool beach area, Grand Traverse Bay. This area is really cool. And yes, it's gonna be the most unmetal thing I've said all night. But on your way up there, there's these enormous sunflower fields. They go on forever. They're spectacularly beautiful. And my wife's a photographer, just for herself, and then she loves taking pictures of that. So some cool stuff. Get some cool images to take back with us as we head back to the burning south in Florida on Saturday. So I'm looking forward to getting some more northern Michigan in before we leave.
We should get him and Melanie introduced so they can hang out. I don't know where she's at down there. Do you know where she's at down there, Kellen?
I don't. Yeah, I think didn't she? She just moved, right?
She just moved. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, TJ. Anything going on? Any sort of promotion other than Glorious Dead and
You know I don't. Why do you even? Nothing.
I'm just being polite.
Yeah, whatever. Look at my carcass box set that I bought because look at it. Just do it. Look at that for a minute. I got that going on.
Stupid, like that record player sitting next to you.
It's the dumbest thing ever. The record player is cool. Kiss my ass. No, that's one of these single dumbest things in my collection, and I have to share that. I don't care. Must have the precious.
Well, that's it, folks. Friday. Oh my God. We don't have any. We'll figure it out. Friday will get figured out. We don't have anything going on yet, but we'll get it figured out. We'll see you Friday. And everybody, thanks for hanging out with us. Everybody that super chatted us, thank you so much. It helps out a bunch. Cheers. And we will see you next week for Devourment. And yeah, that's it. Cheers.